So I'm reviewing The Woman Code by Alisa Vitti. This is a book by a holistic health coach who struggled with a condition called PCOS, Polycystic Ovary Syndrome, which is a grab bag of women's reproductive health issues, and wasn't satisfied by the medical establishment solution because they don't know what causes it, which is to put people on the pill, which makes the symptoms go away. And so it started a multi-year process that resulted in this book, which has her outline of how to live healthily and in a way that's tapped into your hormonal system. So, but before I go into the book and what I think my key takeaways are from it, why am I reviewing this book on when I'm focusing on the topic of confident communication, right? What does your hormonal system and your reproductive life have to do with communicating with confidence and with power? So I originally heard a podcast with Alisa Vitti, and I got very, very interested in this book because she makes the point that our hormones are a linkage between our systems of our bodies and our systems of our mind and our emotions, and feelings of power or powerlessness. The kind of energy that we face the world with has a lot to do with our hormonal systems. And so learning how to understand them, and I don't think she phrases it this way, but I think of it this way, like riding the wave of your cycle is really central to figuring out how to make the most out of the conditions your body gives you. Okay, so going into the book a little bit. So Alisa Vitti's basic approach and philosophy is that while a lot of the diet and nutrition and health advice out there is based on people with a 24-hour cycle, right? Men and women, circadian rhythms, etc. Not remotely as much energy or effort or research has gone into the aspect of having a 28-day cycle, right? The cycle of your period. So if you look at the diets out there and, even until recently, I think as recent as the 1980s, there were still medical studies that were done on male bodies for things like heart disease, and it was just assumed that women work the same way. So there really hasn't been the same investment of energy and attention into women and their bodies. And, in popular culture, we think like, she's just PMSing, right? Like, my period, it's so annoying, right? Whereas if you really think about it, that's a fairly negative way of framing what the majority of 50% of the population goes through. So a couple of takeaways from this book. So first of all, your hormonal system matters, and there are ways that you can manage it, and our modern life doesn't necessarily support you managing that very well. And that's everything from our world not being that interested in tracking your cycle, right, and really understanding how your unique cycle happens from week to week, all the way down to blood sugar is a big issue in her system. So highs and lows of blood sugar based on like skipping meals or, eating too much because you're tired and you're hungry at the end of the day. So getting your eating in sync with your cycle is a big part of her recommendations. And she actually has, and you can see this you can download this online, but recommendations for what to eat at specific times in your cycle, because in some ways, food and sleep are probably two of the biggest ways we can affect our hormonal system, right? Like those are the inputs and the outputs. But she also looks at issues of lifestyle, right? And this is one of the things that I got most interested in. So your energy at the time of your cycle when you are ovulating tends to be more outwards focused and more capable of kind of creativity and complex brainstorming. And so she advises that's the time of the month when you should schedule your big creative meeting, when you should have difficult interpersonal conversations that need to be had. Whereas in your down cycle, right, so in the week before your period and then during your period, it's generally a time of much more inward energy. And so it's a good time to do all of your filing or to do the kind of internal focus things, make less social plans, etc. And she also mentions that during your period, you might be having an issue or a thought that comes up over and over again, and it's a negative thought that you keep having. And so your period is a really good time to pay attention to the things that keep coming up over and over again that you feel dissatisfied with in your life, because they're actually clues to a larger set of issues that might need to be unearthed and isn't working. So, okay, so it's a set of holistic food, lifestyle, sleep. She talks a lot about what she calls adrenal failure. So your adrenal glands are your stress glands, and they're situations people get themselves in where their adrenals are firing all the time because we're in really stressful situations. And so she actually has a set of recommendations that are based on exercise, sleep, and food to get your adrenals back in shape. All right, so this sounds super woo-woo. And also it's kind of like, wait, really? Schedule your business meetings when you're ovulating? Like, I don't have that much control over my schedule. And one of the things that I found most exciting and interesting about this book is it's almost a manifesto of sorts, right? It's do I always need to make my body work according to the demands of the world? Or what do I have some agency to be able to say, hey, I want the world to also meet the needs of my body. So while I have to say that I've been using her eating recommendations and I don't necessarily feel 200% more energetic or I do like the idea of marking time with a way of eating. And I did a 4-day cleanse that she suggests that I also highly recommend, because it gave me a ton of insight into the ways in which I don't treat my body as well as I could, and the ways in which I may not be using my body as a tool for living my best life, which is one of the things she talks about. And so I did this 4-day cleanse, and here's what I found. So number one, I eat while I'm doing a million other things, and I don't treat eating as if it's an important thing to my health and my body. I don't really honor that. I don't honor fueling my body to do the work that it needs to do. And as a result, when I was eating mindfully for those 4 days, I was thinking more clearly, I was feeling more calm, and so it's something that I realized that I really need to do. Number two, I let myself get really hungry in between meals. I'm kind of a meal skipper, or I didn't bring food with me, or I have 7 things that I've planned today, and I'm just running around according to other people's priorities, and it's creating these highs and lows, which not only cause me to eat worse, but cause me to be irritable and cause me to kind of work harder, not smarter, if that makes sense. I'm not doing the upfront planning that I could be because I'm running from thing to thing. And the last thing is that I realized that I'm working according to other people's priorities a lot of the time. I meet when they can meet. There's this thing that we call in the workshop obligation guilt. So let's say that you had to reschedule something with somebody, right? You couldn't meet with somebody this week. And so even though next week is an insanely packed week, you fit them in at the expense of, your own sanity and your own comfort. And so I struggle with obligation guilt. A lot of women do as well. It's part of the people pleaser issue. And so doing this 4-day cleanse, which is fantastic because it's about food, but it's also, there's a set of journaling exercises. There's a set of exercises for really envisioning what you might want out of your life. So I really recommend it. Help me kind of reframe and refigure. And so I came out of that experience actually setting up a new schedule for myself that had more to do with how my energy flows over the course of the day and when I want to be doing outwards focused things versus inwards focused things, and really learning how to say, oh no, that doesn't fit into my schedule, so I have to say no to it now. So the other thing that I want to bring up as it relates to this issue of confident communication is she really talks about tapping into what she calls male and female energy. And I have to say that I don't fully buy into the idea of a male energy and a female energy. And I think that male and female energy, we all have a mix of both of them. And it's just a handy way of thinking about 2 different ways of approaching the world. But I do think that, so she believes that we undervalue female energy in our society. And I absolutely agree. And so she has some suggestions about how to turn up the volume on your female energy. Again, having nothing to do with your gender. And I think that they're particularly useful for people who do creative work. So let me just read you the list of what she says is feminine energy. So it's magnetically attracting what you want. Sometimes in the workshop, we look at issues of control and over control versus being able to let go and let a path emerge, right? And this is something that if we're in creative professions, we officially learn how to do, but that doesn't mean it's easy to do in the context of our lives. And it takes a certain measure of being comfortable with uncertainty and with risk taking. Holding space for projects to develop at their natural pace. Enjoying the process of creation independent of the end result. So many of us are somewhere between type A and type B, right? We're list builders, we're get it done, get it checked off the list, but we're also drawn to creative production, and finding a balance in between those two modes of working is really, really hard. But I think it's also where some of the most important and beautiful things in life come out of. So it's a constant process to learn how to enjoy the process, and then also to be able to have an end result, but to be able to toggle between those two ways of working. Seeing the big picture, multitasking on many aspects of life, right? So there is some research that shows that women's left and right brain hemispheres are more connected than men's. So again, what if we thought of these things as assets instead of as liabilities, right? Working with others, effortlessly creating community. You can see why that's really useful in a work sense. Connecting to emotional and physical life as a catalyst for change and development. So sensory life, right? Enjoying the journey. I just started an art class, and I went on a business trip to New York City, and because I'd just been doing some painting, which is, by the way, why my last video I had a blue hand, because I'd spilled dye on my hand and it wouldn't wash off yet, because I'd recently done some painting. I saw the city differently. I saw the city so differently, and I came back with so much more to pull into my painting practice. And then relating to others by listening, sharing, and nurturing. So, again, I really don't think that these habits necessarily map to male and female. I don't believe in gender as working in that way, but I do believe that our work world overvalues one way of working and undervalues the other. And so this book, even though I can't, I don't struggle with PCOS, so I know that there have been people whose lives have been fully transformed by her philosophy. I find this book is becoming a little bit of a Bible for me about how to have the kind of life that I want to have in terms of, again, smarter, not harder, being more in tune with flow. And, and I guess that's kind of a pun, right? Your flow. More in tune with the flow in your life, while at the same time not sacrificing like the powerful aspects of you. So I really recommend it.